Hey guys, it's Chris. From creepy skeletons that were attacked to pretty gross remains, here are 10 strange archaeological discoveries. Number 10. Sandby Borg Massacre. In a 5th century Swedish ring fort, archaeologists were looking for stuff in 2010. Excavations on the island of Öland started to reveal magnificent jewelry, so they brought in the metal detectors. They found hoards of all kinds of gold, silver, beads, brooches, but as they searched, they found something a little bit darker. In one house, they found a human skeleton laying around on the floor of a house. While they wondered why no one took up the responsibility of cremating the body, they found another human skeleton and yet another, until they came to a total sum of 26. Some sort of attack had happened in the late 5th century AD. Someone had attacked these people and left them there, and no one had come back to clean it up. There were signs of injuries to the head from axes, clubs, and swords. The attackers had struck them from behind or above before they could defend themselves. And as if that wasn't cruel enough, they abandoned the bodies until the walls of the victims' houses collapsed on every single one of them. Archaeologists were able to determine the gender of some skeletal remains. They were all males of different ages, and that leaves us with some serious questions. Where were the females? Or what happened to the females? They also dug up coins, jewelry, and a half-eaten fish in the ring fort. Probably a man was eating his dinner when the sudden attack happened. The sad thing, however, is nobody knows what could have caused this. It was so long ago, but the contrast between the shiny jewelry and the skeletons made this one of the most extraordinary finds in Scandinavia in recent years. Number 9. The Prehistoric Lovers. Now, what comes to your mind at the mention of prehistoric lovers? What's the most famous example of lover's death? If it were straight out of fiction, Romeo and Juliet could come to mind. However, in real life, right in the country of Greece, archaeologists discovered the prehistoric skeletal remains of 2 lovers. What makes this tale even more impressive is their posture. They were intertwined with each other's arms, cuddling in a spooning position. If that doesn't sound like a typical Romeo and Juliet story of lovers in death, then I don't know what does. Archaeologists excavated the skeletons in the cave of Diros in southern Greece. Double burials of couples embracing are rare. The Diros male and female spooning each other are the oldest ever found. The crypt the skeletons lay in dates back as far as 3800 BC. The pebble-floored area also contained infants, pottery, and a dagger. And guess what? The bodies were found just in time for Valentine's Day. The couple must have decided to celebrate their love once more. They wanted to make it in time for another Valentine's Day celebration, even in death. Number 8. Valley of the Kings. Pharaohs and the Egyptian elite liked to take several collections with them to the afterlife. They stocked their tombs in preparation. They took pets, pottery, jewelry, furniture, food, drinks, clothes, and even their underwear. Before 1922, archaeologists found 62 tombs in a valley. The valley had been a burial ground for pharaohs, royalty, priests, and elites for over 500 years, and it became known as the Valley of the Kings. Everyone thought that this valley had shown the world all it had until Otto Schaden made another discovery in 2005. Called KV63, it was 50 feet from Pharaoh Tutankhamun's tomb. KV63 was a room used for embalming. The findings suggest that there was more hidden nearby. In 2019, there was yet another discovery. They unearthed the remains of 2 female mummies near the tomb of Hatshepsut, the longest reigning female pharaoh. But unlike the movie The Mummy, these mummies didn't come back to life. They also found a workshop complex for manufacturing tomb materials. The shops were for making furniture, baking bread, cleaning gold, coloring pottery, and mummifying the dead. A mummification room had ropes, linen, and a piece of wood that looked like a 2-pronged fork. Archaeologists believe that there might have been several hidden underground mausoleums in the same location. They've not yet found all the tombs of all the pharaohs, but these graves might be hidden so well that it could be almost impossible to unearth them. Or maybe one day archaeologists might just dig up the tomb of another pharaoh. Wouldn't that be cool? Number 7. Discovery about Pontius Pilate. What does history have to say about Pontius Pilate? He ordered the crucifixion of Jesus. He seized money from the sacred treasury to build a water channel. Historical records depict him as evil and cruel. His reign was full of bribery, robberies, executions, and killing people who said he was wrong. But what if Pilate had a drop of goodness in his blood? That's what archaeologists found out when they identified a street he built. The 2,000-foot road connected the Pool of Shiloah to the holiest place in Judaism, the Temple Mount. In ancient times, pilgrims stopped at the pool to wash and rest. Can you imagine what that meant? It means Pilate wasn't so religiously insensitive if he constructed a street that majorly helped ease the journey of religious travelers. Although they'd known about the existence of the road since the 19th century, archaeologists recently dug it up and found some coins underneath. The most current coins dated back to AD 30 to 31, when Pontius Pilate ruled as prefect. The archaeologists concluded that Pilate built most, if not all, of the street. The construction required nothing less than 10,000 tons of quarried limestone rock, and this discovery goes a long way in setting his name as one who made some historical impact. However, it's quite strange how there's been very little or no archaeological discovery of Pontius Pilate before this. Number 6. The burial jars of Houdini and CHEWIE. Dogs are adorable, and they share an amazing bond with us. In the past, some owners were so fond of them that they took their dogs to the afterlife. Oh, you thought Houdini and CHEWIE were humans? On the contrary, they were dogs. In 2009, archaeologists discovered a canine burial inside a mud brick structure in Abydos. The structure was right inside one of Egypt's oldest standing royal monuments. They found Houdini and CHEWIE curled up in large ceramic pots, which dated back about 3,000 years. It isn't surprising to find dogs buried in Egypt, but it was the first time dogs would be found buried in jars. Upon discovery, both dogs still had most of their fur intact. And this suggests the Egyptians took extreme care in preserving them. They might have even used oil to coat Houdini's body. Houdini had no wrappings on and was in a large pot with 2 handles. He was a large creature, yet he curled up at the end of a jar that seemed too small for him. The archaeologists named him after the magician Houdini because they couldn't fathom how a dog of his size could fit into such a jar. Number 5. Qin Shi Huang. If you love Chinese movies and you saw the Emperor's Shadow and Hero, the name Qin Shi Huang will likely ring a bell. Qin Shi Huang was the first emperor of a unified China. In 1974, some farmers in the Shaanxi province dug up Qin Shi Huang's terracotta army by accident. The emperor built these clay armies to protect him in the afterlife. While archaeologists have unearthed horses, chariots, and 2,000 soldiers, they estimate that he buried between 6,000 and 8,000 of them. It seems Qin Shi Huang didn't want to be caught unawares in the afterlife. He planned to use his army to conquer kingdoms and remain an emperor even in death. Despite this discovery, the archaeologists never found the emperor's body or even know the exact burial spot. They found a pyramid-shaped mausoleum a mile to the northeast of the excavated army's location. This mausoleum, which is the emperor's tomb, has caves. It's a complete kingdom with a high-tech drainage system. What we might never know is whether or not archaeologists will ever have the technology required to excavate the emperor's tomb without harm. If they can't achieve it, there'll be no way to discover the treasures lying in there. Number 4. Exotic pets. 5,000 years ago, there was a town along the Nile River called Heracleopolis. The residents of this town displayed their power and wealthy status by keeping exotic pets. They kept hippos, elephants, baboons, leopards, and even crocodiles. The owners wanted to emulate the strength of their pets. An elephant owner wanted to show he was big and powerful, while a crocodile's owner could have broadcast that he was dangerous and quick. And they all wanted the animals to accompany them to the afterlife. You can imagine what a town like that would have looked like if there was to be a full display of pets. Well, just as almost every good thing has an end, several centuries later, archaeologists excavated skeletons of the animals in the cemetery. But these animals' lives weren't all rosy. The skeletons had fractures that had healed up. Some baboons had broken arms, and a hippo had a broken leg. According to researchers, the fractures might have occurred during capture or because the animals were tied to a spot. The animals wanted to let their inner ferociousness out, but their future owners were intent on taming them during capture and after each animal became theirs. Number 3. Naughty nuns. Nuns are to live under a vow of chastity, but imagine uncovering the skeletons of sexually perverse nuns. What a scandalous discovery! At Oxfordshire, UK, archaeologists dug up 92 religious people. 35 were females, 28 were males, and 29 are unidentified. The skeletons were found in a burial ground surrounding the site of the priory, which is now being used for a new hotel. Littlemore Priory was founded in 1110, and there are many records of scandals that went on there. Surviving records tell all kinds of stories of naughtiness from the time, provoking Cardinal Wolsey to close down the place in 1525. It was one of the worst establishments in the country at the time. Catherine Wells was the last prioress of the place. She had an illegitimate daughter with Richard Hughes, a priest from Kent. Another nun also had a child with a married man from Oxford. But Catherine didn't stop this. She wanted out. She stole treasuries from the nunnery and pawned them to raise money for a dowry. Soon enough, things deteriorated. The other nuns didn't have money for food and clothing, and the conditions of the priory worsened. The nuns were running away trying to escape from her. Word got out and authorities had no choice but to dissolve the nunnery and pension off the prioress. The skeletons of the occupants were later found in a burial ground not far from the priory's location. Some bodies were upside down, a burial method used for sinners or witches at the time. The position was a way to atone for their sins. Researchers at Reading University are now analyzing the remains to learn more about their burials, after which they will be reinterred on consecrated ground. Number 2. World's Historic Poop. In case you're wondering how a poop got famous and you haven't wondered before, well, you still got some time. As gross as it might sound, a poop is currently considered a national treasure. This is bathroom archaeology at its finest, folks. In 1972, right in the city of York, United Kingdom, archaeologists dug up the foundation of Lloyd's Bank on Pavement Street. They excavated some artifacts, including a latrine from the Vikings period. Strangely, they found a 1,200-year-old poop, one of the largest and oldest of human excrement ever discovered on Earth. People fondly call this poop the Lloyd's Bank turd. The excrement showed that the Vikings' diet consisted mostly of grains and meat. There were also worms in the stool, signifying poor hygiene and filthy health conditions. The Vikings suffered from intestinal parasites of at least 2 types. Number 1. The Underground City. This particular story will do either of 2 things. It would leave you with goosebumps all over or mark the beginning of an incredible adventure of your life. That is, if it happens to you in person. Mustafa Bozdemir of Anatolia, Turkey, must have had one of these 2 reactions when he dug underneath his home and found an ancient city. Yes, you read that right, a full-blown city. And no, this isn't an Alice in Wonderland story. Mustafa had thought he would find a storage space for food or even a stable. However, he unearthed an area large enough to house an entire city. Workers dug further to discover a tunnel entrance. They excavated several living space floors, including an iron workshop and a loft, which covered approximately 4,000 square meters. Finding an underground city that can house at least 20,000 people under your house, well, it's kind of a big deal. Just imagine what you can do with a space that massive. It's simply mind-blowing. Thanks for watching. If you stumble upon a strange door in your basement, fret not. You might just be on your way to discovering one of the most bizarre archaeological findings of all time. So which one of these was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe if you're new here. I'll see you next time on World List.